Dear writer, you need to quit. This is the show that helps you know what to quit, what to keep, and what to question. My name is Becca Syme, and I'm a Gallup certified strengths coach with thousands of hours of coaching 6- and 7-figure authors, mid-listers, major award winners, and new authors alike, because everyone needs to quit something. Anyone can tell you what worked for them, and of course they say it might not work for you, but they can't tell you why. Well, I can tell you why. Welcome to the QuitCast. Hi, and welcome to episode 20. Today we have one of the keepers, or the keep casts, where we talk about the results of the Clifton Strengths Test, which is a success metric, trying to help people understand how they can stand out and be the most successful. So in my coaching program, the Standout Writer, Strengths for Writers, we talk about these individual strength themes or the collections of behaviors that you have a higher capacity to potentially stand out in, how to be better, faster. And so today we're going to talk about one of the themes. It's called restorative. The first thing we're going to do is have Terry and Becca chat a little bit about what restorative looks like. And don't forget, because it's the middle of June, we have Strengths for Writers coaching cohorts that are starting. So check out those links in the show notes and take it away, Terry and Becca, on restorative.
So if you think of the word restore, right, in restorative, people who have restorative want to see things be restored. So they see problems and problem areas, and they want to fix the problem. So they want to, so people with high restorative excel at fixing broken things. So restorative will often take on like an actual physical manifestation, like they like to physically fix things. Like they sometimes like to take machines apart and put them back together, or fix cars, or like a lot of high restoratives are very physically restorative. And then what it pairs with can, because it's fixing broken relationships, like I know high restoratives who are therapists, I know high restoratives who are pastors. And then of course, restorative has some great capacities for writing as well.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I was just going to say for writing, it would be huge because you can then, much of a story is helping fix a broken person or broken plots or ideas. Yes. So they can see answers where other non-restoratives would not necessarily.
Yeah. High restoratives tend to have a very quick thinking capacity to diagnose what's wrong with something. And so they tend to not want to let problems just sit there, which can be a big benefit and they call this sort of like the medical diagnostic kind of capacity, where like I see what's wrong, but I want to fix it. Like restorative isn't just critical, it's actually I want to bring restoration to something. Restoratives will usually commit to what it takes to fixing the problem. Like they'll jump in and really get to be a part of the process instead of just being critical and kind of saying like, oh, you need to fix that and you're wrong in this and that's bad. They're very participatory because of course restorative is an executing strength. And so they actually want to get in and fix things. I think that as a writer, like there are some real benefits to having high restorative. Restoratives tend to have a really easy time with character arcs because they can see what it'll take to change somebody from where they are to where they're going to end up, right? And so one of the cool things about having high restorative is that you really have a concept of what transformation looks like. And I think that's partly because restoratives know just kind of innately that in order to fix something, you have to break it, right? And so, and you have to know where it's broken and how it's broken, and then apply the right method of fixing in order to repair it or restore it.
One of the exciting things about how restorative works is that as a strength theme, it can have a lot of different applications to writing. And so we have 3 very different writers with us today. A couple of them are number 1 restoratives, and so, but they all have it in their top 5. And so you can see the benefit of having this strength very high in your mix. And we're going to start off by introducing the three of them, and then we'll get into the talk show itself. So KC Klein is a multi-award-winning author of dystopian science fiction and romance. She has 13 novels under her belt right now, and she is a #3 restorative. JR Rasmussen is as she would say, a 0 award-winning, but she's a great writer. Writer of epic fantasy as JR Rasmussen, and she is a #1 restorative. And our third author is Tammi Labrecque, who you might know from Newsletter Ninja, which I recommend a lot and which you can find on Amazon. It's a great nonfiction book. And interestingly, Tammi used her restorative when she came up with that book because she saw a problem that authors were having and decided to write a book to help fix that problem. And so what a great example of how to use the restorative strength as a writer in your platform. Tammi also writes other things. She has some pen names that are secret and some that aren't. We'll let you check out everyone's website to tell more about their specific books. But for right now, I want to get into the Strengths for Writers talk show, where we talk about how this problem solving and this restoration skill can work for you in your writing.
So restorative will be problem solving everything though. I mean, like if you see that the sink is broken, if you see that the, like any problem that you see, and then you'll want to fix it. So like a lot of restoratives will kind of have this question mark of like, well, you see the problem, why don't you want to fix it? Like, I don't understand that. So I don't necessarily want to fix problems when I see them. And because I have low restorative, right? All you guys are like, what's wrong with you, Becca?
How can you sleep?
Like, it kills me inside.
Yeah. So I want to hear a little bit about how you filter restorative, like when you read about it or when you think about it. And let's start with Tammi. Like, how would you explain restorative to someone in your own words?
Okay, so for me, the way that it manifests is very much, I do not actually practice restorative techniques very well on my own issues. That's kind of an interesting blind spot there. Where it manifests for me is in wanting to help other people solve problems. Not even just that I can, but that I feel very uncomfortable if I know how to help somebody with a problem and they don't want my help. That absolutely kills me. I know Jen used to be a project manager. She has a little bit of this too. Because sometimes I'll just say something about what a hot mess I am, and she's like, you could try blah, and I'm like, oh yeah, that works. And I'm very much like that with people, to the point where I get really mad when they don't listen to me. I have friends and they'll say, oh, I have this problem, and I'm like, well, here's how you could fix it, and they're like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
Well, wow. So I very much, the way that I often put it to other people is, I've been spending like the last 2 years making other people millionaires. Because I'm just constantly doing coaching and teaching. And then I wrote Ninja because I needed to solve that problem for the author community. And it really, really bothers me if I can't help. I think I need to probably have fewer friends.
Yeah. I mean, that would definitely help, I think.
You haven't made every one of your friends a millionaire, just for the record. I'm waiting on $1 million.
Sure. I need to be your friend, actually.
Yeah.
We need to hook up afterwards.
Yeah, I know. So what you need is more friends, but the right friends.
Right, yeah. Which is me.
Well, and it's really interesting that you put it that way about like seeing a problem and feeling compelled to solve it. And part of that from restorative is because you can see how it can be solved. And like not everyone, I mean, like I said, it can come from other places sometimes, but not everyone sees that ability to like, what could it look like if it was whole? What could it look like if it was fixed?
My situation is obviously not nearly as important. I'm not saving any lives, but I've heard actually doctors say the same thing. If they see something is hurting, how could they not fix it? And that's what it is for me. I see someone having a problem with a thing and it's super easy. I know what you should do. And then I start running my mouth.
Jen, what about you? How would you explain restorative to someone?
I think restorative helps me be kind of selectively persistent because I'm not afraid to tear everything down. I enjoy rebuilding. I enjoy transformation. So if something's not working, sometimes you can spot fix problems and that's great. And sometimes you got to scorch the earth and start over. And a lot of people are afraid to do that. And I don't think I am. I think when something's not working and I know it can't be fixed, I'm ready to just break it down and build it back up again.
Yeah. Yeah. KC, you're nodding. Does that resonate?
Oh yeah, all of that resonates absolutely.
Yeah.
The same thing that Tammi said. You know, I have a lot of, well, I pared down my friends because it got to the point that I would spend just days thinking of ways that I can fix their problems and make their life better. But you know, they kind of were. That doesn't come across really well. A lot of people kind of get irritated when you tell them, like, just listen to me. So I had a funny story that just talks about restorative. So I have 2 teenage girls, and we were just talking about parenting. And so basically my girls came to me and they said, Mom, when we come to you with our problems, we are not asking for advice. And the only time that we're going to ask for advice is if it's in written form and notarized. And then you can advise us. But other than that, you just have to feel like empathy. I was like, but I know how to fix it. They're like, no, we don't want your advice. So anyways, there you go. That kind of sums it all up for me.
Jen, you mentioned the word transformation, and I just want to highlight that I'm sure Terry and I talked about this quite a bit in the talk show that we did, but one of the hallmarks of restorative for writers is that they tend to be very good at transformation arcs. Like they like to take people who are broken or who are missing something or who have a wound, and to transform that person through the process of this, fiction story, which is really, and I'm sure all the restoratives would agree with this, is really what fiction is to a certain extent, is the story of transformation. So how do you see the restorative, and let's start with KC first, how do you see your restorative in your writing?
That's a great question. And I had to sit down and think about it because I do feel like it comes very natural to me as far as trying to fix people's problems. But in my contemporary romances, basically my total crack is about like redemption. So my whole thing is trying to make this one character have such a huge flaw or mistake or something. And then like I push the envelope because that's what I do. And then try over the course of the story to like redeem them, to make the reader be like, that was a horrible mistake. But I do feel for them. I can see how they've grown, and I, can see where they came from. So that is, when they talk about tropes, I'm like, well, where's the redemption trope? But I don't know. I don't have one yet.
Well, that is a trope, though. Redemption is absolutely a trope. And in fact, so KC wrote a book where they're twin brothers. And at the very beginning of the book, the heroine sleeps with the wrong twin brother.
Wrong cowboy. Come on.
And so, like, that's a huge arc, right, of like redemption for her, which was really, really well done. Like, in my opinion, I thought it was really well done because you feel, and again, that's that empathy, right? But like, you feel for her at the beginning of that, and how broken that relationship is, and then what ends up happening in the end. And of course, I won't spoil it for anybody, but definitely, I would agree with that. I think you excel at taking people who are not people you would think that you would want to root for. Yes. And that would be like, I think I like this person by the end, like
total crack.
Yeah, that's absolutely your crack.
And then like in my sci-fi, it's a little bit bigger. It's more world building. I mean, just talking about like, overthrowing the evil empire. I mean, oh my gosh. And if one person can inspire a rebellion that inspires a revolution that can overturn the evil society, I mean, fix all the problems. I'm like, I can't get enough.
That's also your crack. That's accurate for your sci-fi. That's so funny. Jen, what about you? How do you see restorative in your writing?
I think I use it more in the process versus inside my stories. I think it's really good for editing. I think you can spot where the weak points are as you're, doing your revision, and you can see where it's sagging and how to shore it up. I think it's good for spotting weak spots, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Like high restoratives tend to be good editors. And I've seen this with KC also, and I'll say with Jen as well. Like, when you see an area in your manuscript, it's hard not to focus your time there when like this isn't right yet. It hasn't been pushed to where it could be yet, which means that it might take a little more time to get through that process, but it'll be worth it, right, for the high restorative writer. Yeah. Tammi, what about you? Where do you see restorative in your writing?
So in my writing, I actually see it very similarly to KC in that I like to write about flawed people. That becomes problematic when I'm writing in contemporary romance because it's a bit of an acquired taste for people, actually. I started writing kind of in terms of romance when I was reading like in the mid 2000s. I was reading a lot of like chick lit, right? Like Emily Giffin and Jennifer, I think it's Weiner, I don't know. Characters that start out like maybe even a little bit difficult to like. And then you watch them go through this transformative arc. Well, so I put out my first romance, and y'all can go read the reviews if you like. It's under my own name. People have a real problem with that. I hated her. I wanted to throw her under a bus. I wanted to slap her. He's so perfect. What's wrong with her? And I was like, listen, imperfect people deserve love too.
When you look at your marketing or your business, how many of you guys utilize this kind of language? And maybe, and Tammi, I know you do because I've seen your newsletter ninja marketing and stuff like that. And so I know that you utilize that. When you talk to people about it, do you find yourself using restorative language?
Absolutely. And I think that that's probably anybody who markets nonfiction well will do that because that's what nonfiction is. Oh, you have a problem? Here's how I can solve it. Not as easy necessarily when you're trying to market fiction because the problem is I need a book to read, and that is really not a problem. So yeah, nonfiction, super easy. That's exactly how I do it with Ninja. Oh, you're having trouble? Low open rates? I can help you with that.
Yeah.
And go from there.
Yep. Yeah, that's a very good point. In fact, when they talk to you about marketing nonfiction, they actually tell you, like, you need to listen to the language of your target audience and what they're telling you they have a problem with. That's the key way to market nonfiction. And just those of you who are listening to this who don't have high restorative, if you know someone who has restorative who can easily see these kinds of problems, this is a really easy way to help yourself with marketing, is talk to somebody who knows how to talk in this kind of language. KC, what about you? Do you use your redemption arc language in your blurbs?
You know, now that you're saying that, I probably should. I guess when I do my pitch, I do more like The Handmaid's Tale for science fiction, but we finally get to the rebellion, right? Because that's the biggest thing that drives me crazy about that show. I'm like, okay, we see it's bad, right? Like, go, move on. I'm like, let's get to the restorative part.
Have you read the book? Because there's no restorative in the book.
Yes, drove me nuts. But anyways, it's okay.
That's why you wrote your books, though, right?
That's why I wrote mine, because I needed to restore it.
Yeah.
I use it a lot. I think I use it in my marketing because, like we've talked about, you can see where the weak links are in the chain, and when you pull it back, you're like, oh, I can just fix this. But then when you pull the curtain back, it's like, oh, you know, there's 5 other, you know, problems that you need to fix. I think where it has also helped me too is, I don't know if you guys feel the same way, but because I have high restorative, I don't have a lot of emotion attached to someone telling me that I need to fix something. So even in my writing, people were really surprised, like, wow, you moved so fast with your writing, because I didn't sit there when I was first starting and defend it, because I'm like, oh, it's a problem. Of course it needs to be fixed. There's no right or wrong. There's no judgment call on it. And I think that kind of helps even with you know, running campaign ads and, you know, that kind of stuff. I don't have this judgment, well, they should like it because I like it, or whatever the judgment is. It's like, oh, there's a problem. Totally. We can fix it. So, yeah.
So whenever we talk to people who have a hard time, and Tammi used the word precious, which I think is the perfect word. Like, being precious with something means that your biggest priority is the preservation of the thing. Or your biggest priority is the preservation of your ego, or the preservation of your will, or the preservation of your emotions, or you know, whatever it is. Everybody has a biggest priority when it comes to receiving feedback. When you have high restorative, your biggest priority is wholeness, and so, of course, you're going to take it that way. But that's the why behind
I think a lot of people would say, I wrote the book I wrote, but and I'm hearing from KC too, are instead like, oh, the book is broken. Well, then let's fix it.
Let's fix it.
Yeah. And I never assume, no matter what, how many times I've written the book, that it doesn't need to be fixed ever.
Yeah.
And I think when we wrote together, Becca, I think I probably took the longest to edit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I listened to it, literally verbatim as it talked back to me. I mean, I have a very long edit process, but it is why I don't publish so much. But when I finally do, I'm like, okay, this is the best book I could have written at the time. Like I could honestly, before God and all the apostles basically say, yes, this was the best book I could do at this time.
Yeah.
And there's no shame in, having a different, skill set from book 1 to book 13 or book 20. But to say that at this time, this was as best as I could write. So
I would say, from talking to Jen as much as I do, I'm pointing because she's over there for me. Talking to Jen as much as I do, she is also
I'm
not
on her shoulder at all times.
It's one of the qualities that's really obvious about her is the not being precious. She'll just bust into chat and go, I just realized that the whole 12,000 words I just wrote are garbage. So I threw them out because I have to do it differently. And there's never any oh no, or what will I do? Or she's just like, so I threw them out and I'm going to fix that.
Yeah. And actually having that quality, I think, for people who are looking for how do I fix that part of myself, who have a middle restorative or maybe a top 10 but not top 5 restorative, and are looking for a way to help to be less precious with it, is to intentionally foster this attitude of what's more important is the wholeness, is the fixing of the problems.
And so part of understanding the strengths is also knowing who to partner with. If this is something that you struggle with or that you don't have, to know who to ask and what to look for, what kind of language people might use if they have these things, is really important to be able to consider when we're making author decisions. And again, the whole core concept of my platform is helping us be better decision makers. And on that note, I want to say there's a couple of coaching cohorts that are coming up this month. Remember, if you are more interested in Strengths for Writers as a program, everything that I do with Strengths is individual one-on-one work. And so we have these cohorts that start up regularly so that I can kind of funnel everyone into the one-on-ones at the same time. So there's no class discussion per se, but it's all one-on-one strengths coaching. So if you're interested, please do check out the links in the show notes. For now, I want to say thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure to have you watching the Quick Cast. Please do like, comment, subscribe, share, check out the authors that we've seen today, and I hope that you'll join us on the next Quick Cast.